So we're in for a fun and informative night. I'm hoping for the fun part. Informative for sure. So my name is John Opstein. I am the moderator for this evening. As an all candidates meeting, we're not really having a debate. We're going to try to see what these candidates stand for, and they're going to do their best to do that, and hopefully that's how it's going to go. We had some questions that were sent in earlier, and I've kind of compiled them into questions that will work. Because, hey, Peter Lambert spent a whole page, so that's just rambling for him. So I had to put it into something that makes sense. This is a rural kind of agricultural kind of evening. I would like to thank the Campbellville Community Association, Jennifer, putting this all together, and with the Halton Federation of Agriculture, working well for that. So we appreciate their help with all this, and of course our great host here at Country Areas Park. This place is the gem of Milton. Be sure to do it all whatever you can. So what we're going to do is the candidates are going to have 2 minutes to introduce themselves, give their first opening statements. I will be timing them, and as you know, I like to time, and everybody is treated fairly. So when they have about 10, 15 seconds left, I will gently ring a little bell. I don't know if you can hear that. If they continue to talk beyond their time, I'll ring it a little more forcefully. And if they refuse to stop, I brought old Dusty. So Dusty's pretty dusty. I've been cleaning up my house and I found that, so I decided to bring it. So, thinking about, I was sitting on the tractor today and I was thinking about this meeting and the reason why it's so important. Now, it is going to be live streamed, so tell all your friends who couldn't be here today to watch it on YouTube. We'll get it out there. Now, the reason why I think this is the most important of all the rural work, is because, let's face it, when you're doing a campaign, for your efficiency, you're going to go to the doors that are more close together. In the urban area, you can hit a lot of doors in an evening. If you're doing that on the side roads, driving down long driveways, you're not going to see many people. So this is why we're bringing our front door to you tonight. All right? So there we go. All right, so I guess we're going to get started. Charles, he chose, these are all randomly drawn. So Charles is number 1. So Charles, you have 2 minutes.
Hello, everybody. My name is Charles Zach. I'm the PPC candidate for Burlington, North-Milton West. So I've lived in this area all my life. I was actually born in Burlington, raised in Burlington, and I'll probably stay here to the end. So let's not get morbid, but anyway, I'm one of you. I know there's a lot of homesteader families here, so I am you. I am not new to politics. I've been doing this for a couple of decades now. I've been involved with conservative EDAs. I was recently a government lobbyist. So I know the machinations of Parliament, but also the provincial government and municipal as well too. So this is not something that's new to me. I'm comfortable with it. Unfortunately, being so close to the campfire, there's a lot of things that I've seen that are very disturbing. A lot of people that don't get to see this up front don't understand what's going on, but it is very disturbing. If you think what's going on with our government is bad, it's actually worse. So, and we see it here in this region, right? So, anybody had their truck stolen lately? No? Okay. Well, lost time on my area. Any break-ins or thefts of property. So this is a big problem that's happening in this thing. And this wasn't like this 10 years ago. And we all know why. So this area, I love this area. I grew up in this area, but it's changed. In the last 10 years, it's lost a little bit of its soul, lost a little bit of safety. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nadeem Akbar. I'm the Conservative candidate for Burlington North-Milton West. My background is I'm an IT consultant. I have my own company I do business with, and I do consulting with many companies. I'm a local guy, live in a rural area, just down here around Appleby. My wife is a medical doctor. She works in Brampton Hospital. She's a child and adolescent psychiatrist. I've got 3 beautiful children. My daughter is in first year medical school. Son is in first year business in Schulich, and the little one is in grade 11. She plays with Milton Magic. She's a soccer player and a goalie in soccer. I've been involved in the community in politics for many, many years. I ran as a school board trustee first time in 2006 in Mississauga. Then I was also a candidate last time here in 2021 in federal election. And this country has given us, as an immigrant to this country, has given us a lot. And to me, that this is the time for me to give back to the community, to serve my community. The country has given us the opportunity to serve the community in a way that we can help our people, we can help the common people, we can help especially the people in the rural area, because my also background is that my father was a farmer too, and I do understand your issues, and I'll be talking about those issues more. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Nice to see you. Thanks for doing this once again. My name is Adam Van Gooverden. I'm the Liberal candidate for Burlington North-Milton West. It's an honor and a privilege to be here, and thank you so much to our hosts, Country Heritage Park, and all of the agriculture organizations who are co-hosting with us tonight and for making this possible. Because as John said, rural door knocking is really, really hard, particularly when people are busy working and they do show up sometimes. It's a challenging opportunity for a conversation. I've been the member of parliament here in the riding of Milton, so on the west side of Milton, but the riding's obviously changed as they do every 10 years. For the last 5.5 years, and it's been the privilege of a lifetime. I do consider myself as a part of Team Canada. I loved competing for Canada as an athlete, and my first taste of politics was as the chair and vice chair of the Athletes Commission of the Canadian Olympic Committee, and that gave me an opportunity to use my voice to ensure that other people's voices were louder. It's all about advocacy for me. And the first step in advocacy is to get to know people, to show up, to hear their issues and concerns, and try to distill all of those 160,000 voices, thankfully, with redistribution. There are somewhat fewer voices, but it's still 6 figures, over 100,000 people here in Burlington North, Milton West, and making a consensus view and bringing that to Ottawa has been my job for the last 5.5 years. It's, like I said, been a huge honor and privilege, and I think this election is about a lot of things. It's a lot different than the previous two because never before could I have imagined that our safety and sovereignty and our economy would be under such threat from the United States. I've never imagined enlisting in the Army before. I'm not particularly inclined to imagine myself in a military capacity, but I love Canada so much. My parents both immigrated here as children with their families for a better life. Like so many of you, my dad's Dutch and immigrated to Canada and started farming immediately. Started farming apples and tobacco, and my summers were spent on the farm picking sweet corn and tomatoes. So that's a little bit about my background. Thanks so much for joining us. I don't want you to bring out Dusty.
So I do know that campaigns can be stressful. So first of all, what I wanted to give each of you is a stress chicken. I'm a chicken farmer, so by all means, feel free to just don't throw them at each other tonight. That's all I'm asking. So a little stress chicken. Campaigns are very stressful. It helps. So our first question, we brought actually Jennifer Sibbett from the Campbellville Community Association brought this to my attention, and we kind of discussed it. And something we've always known is every candidate, I've done a few of these over the years, and every candidate I've ever met has a pet project, a passion. So what is yours, and what have you done to pursue that locally? And we'll start with Nadine.
Thank you, John. So I can
Yep. In 2 minutes.
Oh, sure.
3 minutes. Looking for the passion.
So you just want me to sit in?
Yes, sit or stand, whatever you want to do.
Well, again, as I said, my passion is to serve the community. My passion is that, as I said, we moved to a third world country where when I came to this country, the first $100 I got it from my uncle, and I bought a subway ticket with that $100 and started my life from scratch. So I understand the issues of the locals here. I understand how hard it is to raise a family, how hard it is to have your children going through the life. It is really difficult, especially nowadays, what's going on in the South. It is very important for us that we have to step up and do the right thing, which is to grow and serve the community in a way that we can fight back to all those who wants to bring us down. So that's the passion to serve, the passion to take the community, to lead them to the right direction, to help them grow. That is what I believe in, and this is what I am in for politics. So I can be your voice in Ottawa, not the other way around. So I am a local guy. I can fight for your rights. I can take your issues to Ottawa, not the other way around.
Okay, well, this is, I'm preparing myself to not get choked up here. I am a co-op kid. I grew up in community housing with a single mom. My dad was always in the picture, very lucky to have both parents around, but that was, for me, a social safety net feature of my early childhood that I will never forget, and I'm always very grateful for. And I love the sort of adage, never forget where you came from. And so when I got elected in 2019, the first thing that I spoke up on with respect to housing, which was a big theme of the 2019 election, and it is a big theme of the 2025 election, and should be, was the lack of non-market housing solutions in any government policy for the last 30 years. In 1994, the federal government of the day downloaded the responsibility of non-market housing solutions onto the province, and very quickly the province of Ontario downloaded it onto the municipalities, and the municipalities are, as the mayor and Milton West, other councillors, Samir is here, our MPP is here, Zishan Hamid will know, municipalities are poorly suited to build a lot of housing. They're not able to access debt, and they're not able to finance things in the same way as the province or federal government. That was a mistake. It was a mistake 30 years ago, and I wanted it addressed. So I went to the Minister of Finance and I said, we need to have a co-op housing strategy. It allowed my family to bounce rather than a net. A social safety net sort of implies that you might get caught in it. A social safety net trampoline is a lot better. Social safety trampoline is a lot better. It ends the cycle of poverty. So we've got a $1.5 billion co-op housing strategy, and right now there are 3,500 units right across the country under construction. It's a start. And sometimes when you've got an old, coal diesel engine, I imagine, John, you probably started a few old trucks in your day, it takes a little while to start. But we've started building non-market housing in Canada. Again, I'm very, very proud of that. My remaining time, I'll also talk about something else that made a big impact in my life, which is access to community sport. I was 13 years old, getting into a lot of trouble after school. My mom saw that I was pretty attention deficit and had a difficult time concentrating and focusing on school. And she needed a solution because she was a single mom and had a younger brother who I was also maybe having a negative influence on with some of my behavior. So she found a canoe club in the newspaper. It said Future Champions Wanted. She called the canoe club and said, I don't have a future champion, I got a future convict, can you help me out? And the canoe club welcomed me in, and for a couple $100 a year, they provided me with an amazing community sport opportunity. I instantly had a goal, I had a mentor, I had a coach, and I had some direction in my life. So another thing that I did when I got elected in 2019 is I went to the Minister of Sport and I said I want to start Canada's first ever national community sport for all initiative. So community sport, community housing, I never forgot where I came from. We launched that $80 million over the last couple of years, and you wanted a local perspective. If you've ever heard of Dribble Dreams, a guy named Ishmael Hassan, he gets 300 kids playing basketball for free every summer here in Milton, and it's due in part to the Community Sport for All initiative that I was happy to start. Thank
So I've had many passions in my life, like I'm sure most people have had here today, but I want to start out by saying that I was born here, and Canada has been very good to my family and myself. I'm also the child of immigrants. My mother and father came here after the 1956 Hungarian Revolution. They used with $5 in their pocket, and they made it. Okay, like many people here, you know, it was a land of opportunity. Okay, so I had a great childhood. I went skiing at Kelso and, you know, walked through Bruce Trail and bombed around my motorcycle and played this over here, so I know the area well. The point I'm trying to make is that I don't see that kind of future for the youth. I have 3 children, and it's not like it was. There's something that's degraded, right? You see a lot of our youth now, can't buy homes. You can't even find a part-time job, right, to sustain them, you know, between semesters. You know, there's something definitely wrong. So my passion here, as you can see, I'm not a senior, but I mean older like everybody else out here. But along with that experience comes wisdom. So with that wisdom, I want to impart that into the future. So my passion right now is to make a segue for youth into the future, to make it better for them, or at least make it the same as what I have. And that's where I want to go, right? We see too many things, too many obstacles in the way. It seems to be policy-driven. Yes, there's all kinds of social ills that have come our way through various things of, you know, failed government policies that have exacerbated things. So we need to bring that back. So I guess in a single word, I want to bring back, my passion would be is freedom and liberty for our children, so that they can have hope, you know, they can build a future, and they're not going to be hemmed in and forced to go elsewhere just because the opportunities aren't here. So hopefully we can do that, and I thank you for your attention.
Yeah, I think it's important for us to know who the people are, not just the policies and all that. So that's why it may seem like a softball question, but it's important to know who you guys are. So, and I am timing so everybody has equal time. You know, they don't use it, but it's up to them. And I am trying to be as you know, impartial as possible. That's why I went with an all black, the Johnny Cash type outfit. Okay, so even the underwear and socks. You know, I'm not doing any partisan. So there you go. Okay, the next question we're going to have came up a lot. It's a federal issue that is very local, the scan intermodal. We understand that it's before the courts now, but we would like to have your opinion on that and what the stages are, what steps are after we settle, and what you're willing to be a part of. CN intermodal. So we'll start with Charles. And you have two minutes.
So I know this is a big sore spot with everybody. And this has been a long time coming. And there's been lots of pushback on this, and this is going to be, as much as it's going to bring, you know, commerce to the area, I think everybody's agreed that this is going to be probably an ecological disaster. You're going to have trains marshalling here, there's going to be transport trucks in there's going to be, you know, gas fumes and noise pollution and whatever else is going on. I know they're going to try to mitigate that, but they're building subdivisions right around this thing, right? And I wouldn't want this in my backyard. I mean, that's not NIMBYism, that's just practicality, you know. So unfortunately, this is a prime example of federal government overreach and not listening to the grassroots. You know, unfortunately, I know your representative tried to do something about it, but he failed. It's here. Now they're saying, oh, we should continue to fight this. I've talked to several lawyers about it. This is a done deal.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Well, you can fight it. You can fight it, but they're saying that eventually this is going to be done, and we're going to spend even more taxpayer money on the lost cause. So
We're talking to lawyers too.
that's great.
after the candidate speaks.
Keep on talking, okay? But once again, we didn't have to be in this predicament, okay? So if only the federal government would listen to the people, we wouldn't be having to go to the courts, but we are, all right? So I would have done this a little bit differently. Of course, you have to listen. I'm a grassroots guy. You listen to these people. This thing could have gone someplace else, out of town, someplace. I understand progress and you need this kind of infrastructure. I get that. So I think I would have done something, but this is, once again, a definite example of federal overreach and not listening to the people.
Dean.
Thank you. This is a big issue. It's a huge issue, and it's your issue, and it's my issue. The reason why I say it's my issue, because I live close by to that intermodal, which they are building right now, and I must say that our previous Liberal governor, and especially, and I also want to thank Adam for he has served to this community for many years, but especially on this issue, he has failed to serve and to raise this issue with the federal government. And this is not my voice. This is what I heard from many residents in Milton. I ran last time also in 2021, and they have mentioned it to me that they were being promised that if we get, this was the promise by my good friend Adam, that if we get elected, we form the government, we will make sure that this will never get approved. But what happened? It was approved, and we have spent, especially the town and the region, has spent a lot of money, your tax money, to stop this, to fight for it. And there are a lot of people here, they have spent countless hours to fight for this issue. My pledge that I will help you, I will raise this issue to the federal government. If we form the government, I will do whatever I can in my capacity to help you, to stand with you.
Thanks for what is a very important question. Before I start, I'd like to thank the extraordinary volunteer activist community who has been doing this work on their own time and dime for years. So to all of you, I won't mention you by name, you're all familiar, but to Milton Says No, I think you do deserve a round of applause for everything that you do for our community. I disagree with my colleague from the PPC. This is not a done deal. And I disagree with my friend from the Conservative Party because I have worked my ass off on this. And we have not received a 100% satisfactory response from the government, but this is not over. This is not done. What I was able to do in my first term was bring every mayor of the region to Ottawa to meet with pertinent ministers. And Mayor Kranz is here and he'll corroborate that. He came up and he met with every minister. I've taken every meeting with local groups, every call, every email, and we've sat down a couple of times, discussed our options. So my role over the last couple of years has been to support the court cases against the federal government, which is a tricky thing when you're in the federal government. So I will acknowledge that the local activist community who does extraordinary work has been dissatisfied with my activism, and I will undertake to make sure that this never is off the table in terms of Milton's top issues in the federal government when I am re-elected. It hasn't stopped. I bring it up at every meeting that I can. I bring it up with ministers of transport, ministers of environment, all of the pertinent ministers as our top local issue, and that will continue. Now, I will also acknowledge that no government will put themselves in the line of fire for litigation if they know they're going to lose a court case. So what we need to do is win this at the grassroots level. We need to make sure that the local governments have what they need in order to go and take this to the Supreme Court and win. And I do think that's possible. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And we have great respect for all of you who put your name forward. That's something that's why I'm sitting off the side. I don't deserve to sit at the table. I didn't put my name forward, so there you go. So our next question is kind of a combination of a lot of questions that came in. It is essentially, the world is very different. So agriculture is different than what it was 50 years ago. What is your vision for Canada, and where's agriculture's place in it? And we'll start with that, I guess, and we'll go about 2.5 minutes on this.
Thank you. I didn't have enough time, and the CN issue is important. And I wanted to tell you that I've already brought to Mark Carney, that I would like the approval of the CN intermodal here in Milton reviewed by his government. And I received an assurance that we will be able to have a meeting about it. And that's progress. And I will continue to do that. And I'd like to thank Councillor Samir Howley for specifically requesting that I do that. Look, we live in an amazing riding, an amazing community that feeds a lot of southwestern Ontario. Whether you are a cow farmer, a dairy farmer, an egg farmer, a chicken farmer, an apple farmer, I want to thank you for keeping us well fed. And I want to see Canadians be more well fed by Canadian produce. I would like to see us import less food and rely less on particularly the United States. I don't know about you, but I've been checking labels lately at the grocery store, and I've been buying more and more in Canada. That means a little bit less orange juice, and I can't find Canadian broccolini, and rapini is one of Emily's favorites, so I'll keep looking for alternatives. But we want to be able to be as self-sufficient as possible. And in the context of the war in Ukraine, which is the breadbasket of Canada, of the world, I want to see Canada be the fruit and vegetable bowl, the soup pot, the meat provider for the world. We have the capacity to do just that. And we are going to be under a lot of stress over the next couple of years with respect to our economy, or with respect to tariffs. And on agriculture specifically, we need to work with our farmers. They are our best environmentalists. They're our best ecologists. They're our best weather vanes for climate change. They know before anybody else does what's going on with our weather. So we need to rely more on them, and we need to support them better. I helped conduct a study at the Environment Committee in my last term on which governments are doing the best job supporting local agriculture around the world. And it turns out that France does an extraordinary job supporting their farmers. Now, something like that, it was also always like a plum or something that was grown close by. And that's the type of food strategy and policy that we need to adopt as Canadians. We need to see less waste, not at the farm level, but mostly at the grocery level. And a national food policy will help us ensure that we're growing what we need, growing what the world needs, relying more and more on our farmers, and supporting our agriculture sector literally from the grassroots, from the canola roots, if you will, all the way to the grocery store, to our bellies.
Thank you, John. I wish that study would have said Canada is the best country to have more and more food produced here in Canada. Look, my background is also, my father was a farmer. I do understand the farmer community is the key community to serve their other communities who grow the produce which we can take to the market and feed people everywhere within the country. But unfortunately, for the last 10 years, there was no such plan which we were more relying on south, or sending our product to different areas, but we're not doing business within ourselves. And this is something which is very important for us, that we should have less and less relying on the south of the border. We should do more business within ourselves. If you look at the Saskatchewan and Manitoba and those areas, you have a lot of crops. You can send it to the south, and you can same thing you can do within the Canada, all kind of business. So what we, as a conservative, what we'll do, as our leader Pierre Poilievre mentioned, that we'll work with the farming communities and make sure that we give them all the tools, all the available tools, all the help they need to make sure that we have enough product produced here locally, which we can not only serve our communities locally, but also we can send our product internationally also. And that will be our goal. Thank you.
So once again, I've grown up in the this area. Halton is famous for its farmers. You know, Burlington used to be the terminal for all the food that came from the north. And he used to take it down there by wagon down to the lake, and then go onto barges and ships and go across the lake to Rochester and to Toronto and Hamilton and everything else. It's a proud heritage, and it's something we need to preserve. You know, we need food. We just can't pave everything over with terminals. Anyway, the Liberals are always talking about support. That comes at a cost of your freedom. In my view, the government is way too involved in the farmers' lives. They're not really helping. They're more obstacles than anything else. Okay, I don't know about you, but who knows better to run your farm or your business than you? Who believes that the government can do it better? I don't. So that's my view, is to get government out of the way so that you can prosper and you can do the kind of things that you need to do. You can get your goods to where it needs to be without over-taxation, over-regulation, and getting the government getting involved in your business. So if you send me to Ottawa, I promise you that's what I'm going to be focusing on, is that just moving government out of the way, right? It's not worth it, right? It may be comfortable, but you can do it better, not them. Thank you.
And also, you mentioned the history of farming in this area. I know Councillor John Challoner, very involved with the Historical Society. That they have this great stuff about all the history of the families and all that. So check that out. I don't know the website around off the top of my head, but by all means, do check it out. It's really useful. Milton Historical Society. That's it. And they have some great books and stuff you can check out with like history of the Masters. It's awesome. Anyways, on to our next question or topic, I guess you would call it. And Adam brought it up earlier when we were discussing where he was growing up, etc. The housing crisis. Housing crisis in Canada is there's a lot. We lack a lot of housing. And I'm just wondering what you and your party is going to do to try to alleviate this issue. Right, and we'll start.
Thank you, John. So again,
2 minutes.
So again, this is also because of the biggest challenge we have right now. And as you know, that we have over 1.5 million shortage here only in Ontario. It's a biggest issue, and again, for the last 10 years, the Liberal government, Carney-Trudeau government, have failed to help Canadians here locally. They talked about a lot that they're going to build every election. They promised many things, but they haven't done it. On top of it, what they have done for the last 3 years, they brought so many people around the world haphazardly that we had a system in place that for many years that we were bringing the X number of immigrants to this community, to this country. And those were different trade workers, those were nurses, those were students, those were immigrants who were serving in this community. But for some reason, for the last 3 years, we have seen that they brought millions of people, and they don't have enough resources, they didn't plan well, they didn't have enough houses here. And also the local market, they were planning to build more houses. They have failed to complete to help that the construction plan they have presented were not able to do it. They promised a lot, but they were not able to do it. So at the end of the, we have a huge shortage of houses here, which raises the prices for the houses, and we had problems and were not able to solve what we, as a conservative government, could work with the communities, with the provincial provincial government, with the municipalities, and give them the incentive to build more houses.
Gotta keep it fair. Okay, Charles.
So yes, we have a manufactured housing crisis that was created by the Liberals. There's other factors as well too, but this wasn't the case 10 years ago. So, no, it wasn't, no. So anyway, 10 years ago, you could buy a house for a fairly reasonable amount. Now you can't. I see some youth over there. Can you buy a house today? Probably not. Okay. So that's a shame. We've let down our youth. We talked about my passion. That's a big deal with me. So once again, we've had this situation with the housing. Of course, it is a supply and demand situation, right? We've got people, way too many people looking for housing, and we don't have enough houses being built, at least not at a fast rate. And part of that reason why we can't build them as fast as well, too, because there's too much government intervention, too much blocking, too much bylaws, too many things, hoops to go through. We can't build them fast enough. Actually, I don't think we can build them fast enough anyway, because we have too much supply, too many people looking for housing. My party recognizes this is a huge problem, and we need to arrest this right now. So our policy on this is to have a moratorium on immigration immediately, so that we can balance the housing problem in this country, so we can catch up. We can't keep bringing in thousands and thousands of people and hoping to try to catch up with the housing. It's an impossible thing. Now they're talking about creating Soviet-style housing all over the place and we all know where that goes. Anyway, what I would do, what I said was that definitely we would halt immigration so we can correct ourselves and get government regulation out of the way so that the developers out there and the builders out there can do the job for you.
So I committed to staying really, really positive, but calling cooperative housing Soviet-style housing is disgusting. My mother escaped communist Hungary the same year as your parents did, Mr. Zach, and she built co-op housing for 30 years in this country. She managed Friarby Co-op in Mississauga, and we lived at Chautauqua Co-op, and it was not Soviet-style housing. It's Canadian-style housing because it was affordable, accessible, supportive, and it helped my family, after a divorce, get back on our feet. And now both of us are homeowners. It's a success story, not Soviet-style. That's disgusting. So what are real solutions? This housing crisis did not start 5 years ago or 10 years ago. It started in 1994 because the federal government made a bad decision. They got out of the housing game, they downloaded it down on the provinces, and the provinces did the same thing with the municipalities. So we reversed that. We're the first government in 30 years. That was a liberal federal government and a BC provincial government that made those decisions. It's not a partisan issue, and it's not also one jurisdiction. Housing is one of the unique portfolios that is the responsibility of the municipality, the region, the province, and the feds. And we all have a role to play in finding solutions. Unfortunately, we've relied exclusively on the market, just developers, to provide us with all of the housing needs that we have, with the exception of long-term care and student housing sometimes. That's not enough. The government actually does have a strong role to play in building affordable housing. And now that we're back in the game, we're going to continue that. Now, in terms of incentives, the federal government, with the Housing Accelerator Fund, has invested $44 million between Milton and Burlington with the Housing Accelerator Fund, and we've already seen some great results. We've got a couple of awesome projects right here in Milton on Ontario Street. We've got opportunities to build more affordable housing. We've got to work with housing providers like Milton Transitional Housing and our regional governments. They're doing really, really good work. But anytime a politician says they want to see smaller government, beware. Because what they're saying is they would like to be in that small government, which means they would like more power and influence. I want to see it spread out among many, many institutions, and I want to see more power and influence spread across those institutions. That's democratic.
All right. See, you're all passionate for all these issues, and I love that. That's important, that everyone's passionate. So that just shows that we have some good representatives here vying for our vote and our representatives. Okay, our next big topic is the environment. That's something that the federal government does play a role in. Everything from climate change to carbon pricing and all that fun stuff that we all love to talk about. So just for, I think we can all look at your party's policies, but where do you stand? Where do you want to see our environmental protection plan go in your vision for the future of Canada? So we'll start, I guess, with Charles.
And we'll do 2.5 minutes. It's worth it.
Okay, so yes, the climate does change. It's changed forever. Many people in Halton say, "Oh, geez, the climate is changing and it's flooding." Well, Burlington and Milton are basically built on a floodplain, and what's actually happening here? Of course, we have to be good stewards of the land and not pollute it and everything else, and not what we did in the past. But unfortunately, we have a government that is now created a situation where they're exploiting this fear of climate challenge, and they've turned it into a taxation mechanism so that they can take more money from you. They don't have to do that. Canada already has a really good record of climate management. And everybody knows that we've got one of the biggest boreal forests in the world, right? So, the trees are doing most of the job. We don't need to do more taxation to bring in certain infrastructure. So my view is that, yes, of course, we can continue to be good stewards of the land, but taxing people because of the climate is, in my view, just ridiculous. I mean, the Liberals have been doing it for 10 years. There was Paris Accord goals that they were supposed to hit. They hit none of them, okay? But they did steal your money for 10 years. And you can see that in the price of gas that you're paying. It's down to, $1.20 now a liter. It was at one point almost $1.60. They stole thousands of dollars from you over 10 years under the guise of climate change, and nothing happened. That's going to stop. Thank you very much.
Thanks. This is one of my favorite topics. I've had the pleasure of serving as, I just want to start my time as the Parliamentary Secretary of the Ministry of the Environment and Climate Change. I want to start by acknowledging that market-based instruments like carbon pricing, cap and trade, and many others are effective ways of reducing emissions. And Canada has a role to play in the reduction of our emissions. Per capita, Canada's emissions are high. We need to travel long distances, and so does everything that we need. We tend to drive vehicles that have larger engines, partially because of our weather, but also because of our traditionally lower gas prices than they have in Europe. But anybody that says that Canada does not have a role to play in the fight against climate change and the lowering of our emissions and the reduction of our reliance on fossil fuels is wrong, in my view. Canada will continue to play a really strong role in the global fight against climate change and the shift towards renewable energy. But I also want to acknowledge that Mark Carney eliminated the consumer carbon price on fuels that we require to heat our homes and move our vehicles around because it became a very toxic issue. It became very divisive, and some politicians focused on it almost exclusively in order to garner favor. So we eliminated it because we're going to use other ways to lower our emissions. And it's not as though nothing has happened in the period of time that we've been actively trying to reduce our emissions. We're actually the only economy in the world that has managed to grow our economy, grow the big pie while lowering our emissions at the same time. Our emissions today in Canada with respect to CO2 and other harmful emissions are lower than 1997. 1997 was the last time they were this high. Now, industry has a really strong role to play, and one of the impacts of pricing pollution, and one of the private members' bill from a conservative that I supported, was the elimination of the consumer carbon price on grain drying. It's hard to dry grain in Canada because of our climate. We don't live in Thailand where you can use basically a solar grain dryer. We need to use fossil fuels right now. Until there's an industrial application that uses electricity or renewable energy, it's a reality. I want my flour and my other grains to be as low carbon as possible, and I also want my fuel to be as low carbon as possible. And that is possible. Canadian innovation with effective cap and trade programs and science. We're going to listen to science first. We are going to focus on research and innovation, while at the same time conserving more nature, making sure that nature does its work, and we don't have such a devastating impact on the biodiversity of our country.
Thank you. Well, we all agree that climate change is real, and as Charles mentioned, that we have a system in place in Canada that we all follow, but the problem is for the last 10 years, Liberal government has charged us so much money in terms of the carbon tax, and they've been taxing us for again and again and again and again. And thanks to our leader, Pierre Poilievre, who's been advocating for this issue for many years, and eventually they were able to listen, and they were able to pause it for only the consumer part. Thank you. And that was before the election, because they know that they're going for an election, and this is the carbon tax election. And what we are suggesting that they not only that they should remove permanently the consumer part, but the industrial portion also. That will help the farmers. That will help the industry. That because we don't want to send our products to somewhere in China or somewhere others where they don't have the set rules the way we have in Canada. So the point is this, that you have been charging us for the last 10 years, and now, right before the election, you gave us a break, and you can see the price of the gas right now at the pump, and some of my Liberal colleagues, they were making videos and showing it to everyone and saying, hey, look, we paused the carbon tax, and look, the gas prices went down, and we're paying price on every single thing in terms of the grocery, the gas, you name anything. We've been paying for it. And now, it's not gone yet. So who knows when they'll go back to the parliament, and if, I hope not, if Canadians give them the 4 more years again, what they will do to us. Probably they will bring this back with a different name, a fancy name, the way they've been using all these terms before. And this has to be totally removed, this has to be gone, period. Thank you.
Hopefully the battery will get behind this one. All right, well, thank you for that. Those strong opinions. Okay, our next big topic is international relations. It's a very hot button issue right now. There's, Russia, Ukraine, Gaza, Palestine, all that. The Middle East is always upheaval. We have a president down south who likes to create chaos, it seems. That's just my opinion. But anyways, where do you see Canada's role as a leader in the world when it comes to international relations and peace and all that? So we'll start with Nadine.
Thank you, John. Yes, so Canada has been a leader internationally, especially in terms of raising the issue for human rights and our position as a neutral. Our party, as a conservative party, we want peace everywhere in the world. We want people to live in peace. And we don't want to see any of the wars or anything like that. That's our stance, and this is what I wish, and this is what I will be advocating for. In terms of the relationship, unfortunately, the U.S. was our best ally and our best friend we've been dealing for many years, and we have so much business with them. And unfortunately, things are not moving the way they're supposed to be. But at the end of the day, we have to think ourselves first. So if we, for the last 10 years, we would have been doing enough within Canada and less rely on US, then we would have been better in Canada, so we don't have to look towards our neighbors or towards others to help us in this crisis. So this was very important, that we should have a strong leadership. We should have a common sense leadership in this country who can make the decisions which will help the common people, could make the common sense decisions. That is very important for us. This is what we are going to stand for Canada First. Thank you.
Yes. So, Canada used to be a leader in this regard, but no longer. The cupboard is bare. The Liberals have squandered our treasury, sending money to all over the place with no return on investment. And I understand everybody wants to help somebody, but there's a limit. We can't even help ourselves anymore. We're sending billions of dollars to Ukraine. It's not our war. Not our war. Not my flag. Okay? In the meantime, China is sending balloons across our land with some kind of surveillance, whatever it was that was on there. Everybody heard about this last summertime. And it ended up in the Yukon. They finally took it down. Well, guess who took it down? It wasn't the Canadians. It was the Americans. Right? We're in a sorry state here. Right? This is not the age of Pearson anymore. The Liberals have dismantled our military, degraded our effectiveness. They're not even talking to us anymore. Okay? They're not taking Canada seriously because we won't ante up in terms of our armed forces because we can't. We're broke. And ideologically, the Liberals won't do it anyway. They say they will, but they never do. The Liberals always get in, and they always decimate the military. And our effectiveness is affected by that. So my party is against all kinds of foreign intervention. We wouldn't be sending your sons and daughters to the Ukraine for training or anything else. And we're certainly not going to be sending any money there. And that's where I stand on that.
I'm going to start by saying Canada has a strong role to play in the world. Canada's always been an example for freedom, for equity, for progress, for peace. And we will continue to have that in three ways. First, we're going to make our NATO commitments. We're going to rise to the occasion. We're going to fund our military, and we're going to be more self-sufficient with respect to our military. That means that we're going to have an opportunity to defend our Arctic sovereignty because the war in Ukraine is something that we ought to be very concerned about because we also share a border with Russia. And when they start doing this imperialism and deciding that other places that they don't own and aren't theirs ought to be, that's dangerous. And we see the exact same thing from the United States President with respect to Greenland, Panama, Canada. Even today, the President's office issued a statement suggesting that Canada ought to be a 51st state. I want to be very clear. Canada will never be a 51st state over my dead body. Canada, unfortunately, also has never made our international development commitments. We have a role to play to ensure that the world gets safer, healthier, and more secure. Canada is a very, very fortunate country, and we have a commitment at the United Nations to spend a certain proportion of our GDP on international development, and I'm sad to say that we've never actually achieved that target. I'm always a big fan of making sure that we achieve that target. The notion that we send billions and billions and billions of dollars abroad with no impact is false. That's not true. I've worked in the international development community. I've been to Palestine. I've worked in Rafah and Gaza, and that money does have a really, really strong impact in making sure that our world is a safer, more secure, healthier place for everyone. Things like pandemics happen in other countries and then they affect us. Wars happen in other countries and they affect us. And Canada's strong role in peace building, in diplomacy, and effective resolution of conflict is extremely important. Now third, unfortunately, we have to acknowledge the United States' change in posture with respect to our relationship. We need to be more self-sufficient, and we need to find new friends that share our values to trade with, and we will. Mark Carney's first 2 visits over to Europe to see France and the UK were emblematic of that, and I was happy to see him purchase that massive lot of billions of dollars of US Treasuries, because now we have leverage over the United States president, and lo and behold, he immediately started calling him a president and stopped with the silly governor rhetoric.
So Dave, you have a previous engagement, so what I will do, he has to leave a little bit early, but we do appreciate that you can make it out. You know, these snap elections, it's hard to, your schedule is already made before, and we've got to fit us in. But we're going to give you 3 minutes to make your final pitch, and then we'll do that. Well, the rest of you we'll give you some more questions, and then you'll have that chance over there. No. Just the dean has to leave, so. No, just we'll give him a chance to do his final pitch, and then we'll get to more questions.
Thank you, John. Well, as I mentioned earlier, this country has given me everything. I have started my life here from scratch. I have built my business here, established everything here locally. I have beautiful family, kids. Have worked within the communities, have served in many roles. And to me, this is the time that I should give back to the community. I should work with everyone here locally, talk to them on a daily basis. This is what I've been doing for the last 3 months, knocking on doors, reaching out to people, asking their questions, asking the issues which matters to them, which are important to them. And my role will be as a candidate, as an MP, if I get elected, to work with you, to help you to raise your issues in the parliament, to take your voice in the parliament, and especially the issues which are local issues, which are important to you. That's my pledge, that I will work with you to help you to take those issues to Ottawa, and I will be your representative in Ottawa for your voice. Unfortunately, we have seen the last 10 years, every sector of life in Canada is suffering. The Canadian dream, the dream which I had in my mind when I came to this country, you cannot fulfill that dream anymore. My kids won't be able to buy a house the way I was able to buy. And that is a very unfortunate part. And thanks to Liberal for the last 10 years, that this is where we are right now. So my humble request to all of you, please, when you talk to your friends, when you talk to your neighbors, please do your homework, do your research. Don't go with their fancy promises again. They'll tell you all those things, but just look at the track record, look at what they have done to this country, and based on that, make a decision. And make an informed decision and give them a message. Tell them that we cannot afford another 4 years to this Liberal government for the reckless policies which has taken us to a stage where our kids are not able to buy a house, where our students for the last years, 18% of our Canadian students were not able to find jobs. And every single sector in the life is suffering. And that's the message. Please take this message. Think before you vote, and vote for a common sense conservative. Vote for Nadeem Akbar. Thank you.
Well, we're going to get to more questions in a second here. So.
Well, we can ask him.
Okay, but he has to leave.
Moderator, but this candidate is leaving. I have questions.
But we can't control other people's schedules, so we did our best. You can ask an email. You can send him an email. You can call his campaign. I'm sure they'll give you the number right now, and we'll go from there. So, but now we're going to open it up to the floor for some questions. We have a bit of time. I think we covered a lot of topics, and thank you all for who put. Oh, you might.
Okay, I won't talk this way. Okay. So first of all, thank you all for those who sent in questions, and I tried to kind of, compile them into that they were themes, whatever that were. So now what we're going to do is we're going to open it up to the floor for questions. I just want to remember, I like to remind people that you're asking a question, you're not making a speech. I understand that sometimes questions need a bit of context. Like if you ask, red or yellow, it's important if you're talking about fire trucks or bananas, right? So a little bit of context, but if you want to make a speech, there's a chair here, and the next time we have an election, you are free to run as an independent or whatever, and that's, I would be happy to moderate you sitting there. So no speeches.
You got a big bell. You can use your bell on that.
I can use the bell on them too, and I will use the bell on you if you ask us. So just raise your hand, and hopefully, Jennifer?
I'll be running. I don't want a question. I'm helping.
Just like Donnie.
There we go. I know.
Hi, I'm Milton West. My parents lived in Lowville for many years, and I'm a resident of Burlington, and the EDA here. There's a lot of talk about the cost of housing and tariffs, but we haven't addressed the sort of elephant in the room. What about the deficit and the debt? And how much is that piling on to not only us, but our children? I mean, kids are born now with $30,000 of federal debt weighing on their shoulders. By the time we hit 2030, it's going to be $60,000. So where's that going?
Sir, Charles. So the debt. 2 minutes.
The debt, yes, definitely the elephant in the room. Okay, so the liberals love to tax and spend your money, and boy, they're really good at that, right? I think we're, what is it, 1.3 trillion now? Right. Lots of money, okay? $1 trillion, does anybody know what that is? I can't even fathom that. Anyway, but the problem is that you can have all the good intentions you want in the world, but if you don't have fiscal responsibility, you have chaos, and yes, as the person in the audience just said, now they've hobbled our youth. We are paying so much on debt servicing. That debt servicing alone can bring in so much social good, but we can't because we have to pay the banks. Okay? So, I don't know, I certainly don't run my household like this. I don't sit there with 5 credit cards and put them to the max and hope for the best, die one day and leave my kids with all my debt. Okay, that's just irresponsible. The liberals are, frankly, fiscally irresponsible. So, my party's position on this is that that needs to be arrested. Now, there's a lot of things that are sucking this money out of the system, out of your pocket. And a lot of that has to do with big, big government. There's a lot of departments out there that they really don't do anything for you for the common good, right? They do fringe things and they're brought in for ideological purposes and everything else, but in the bottom line, there's no real return on investment for the people that are actually paying for it. So, in the end, this needs to be arrested. Otherwise, we're going to fall off the cliff if we're not there already. So, that's my view on that.
So it's an important question. Canada's debt and GDP have a relationship, and it's represented in Canada's debt to GDP ratio. And that ratio is important because it represents the burden of our debt. And globally, ours is extremely strong. You don't have to listen to a politician about this. You actually shouldn't just listen to a politician about this. There are rating agencies around the world that look at sovereign nations and countries and how their debt is managed, and Canada gets a AAA rating because our debt to GDP ratio, so how much money we owe collectively and how much money we earn as a nation every single year is extremely good. And that AAA rating is reflective of the last 10 years and our Liberal government's stewardship of our economy. It's important to note that this question actually doesn't come up in the United States very often. They go way overboard on their debt, and they actually the government finances massive tax cuts for businesses and for millionaires and billionaires. We don't do that in Canada. We ensure that we continue to have a strong relationship between our debt and our GDP. We want our GDP to grow, and the grass grows where you water it. So you do need to invest in the economy in order to see growth in your economy. And that's why we've seen a really, really strong growth. So back in the mid-90s, our GDP was around 500 or 600 billion. Today, it's over 2 trillion. We've seen really, really good growth. Canada, by population, is not in the top 20 with respect to our population around the world, but we're the 10th largest economy. So we're a very, very wealthy nation, and our debt to GDP ratio is extremely strong. And I think Canadians, ought to be secure in that and not take too much when people suggest that a nation should be run like a household. A country will never be paid off like a house. That's just not feasible, and it's not something we should aspire to. When you have austere governments that are forced to balance the books every year and not invest in themselves, you'll see low growth and you'll see a lower quality of life. We ought to be very proud of the fact that our quality of life is among the highest in the world, and our debt to GDP ratio is extremely good. And our debt is mostly sovereign, unlike a lot of other nations. My colleague just suggested that when you pay off debt, it's money into the wind. 75 cents on the dollar goes to your CPP, your OAS, your pensions, and our associated
Okay.
I'd just like to address this, because this is...
No, we can't have back and forth. We're going to just do it this way. People can take what he said for what they said.
That one's still not working.
Is this still working?
Yes.
Oh, yes, it's working.
Back to business.
Another question.
Back left.
Back left. Yeah, that was first one. I think.
Hi, thank you. My question is for both candidates. I actually wish the other candidate was also here. It's unfortunately they leave. I work at post office. I've been there, believe it or not, 41 years. I've worked in 3 provinces, small places, large cities. We even brought out, like I said, even as of recently, sometimes I ship baby chicks and bees and things like that out to farms out in this part of Ontario, right? The question I'd like to put to you, they put a pause on our work disruption. We were on strike back in December. The Minister of Labour invoked Section 107 of the Canada Labour Code and put a pause. There's a mediator, Mr. Campbell, is writing a report that's coming out on May 15th. We could be in the strike or walkout position on May 27th. What I'd like to ask, when Mr. Trudeau took over power, first thing he did was, or one of the first things he did was put a moratorium on closures and put a moratorium on eliminating door-to-door delivery. Particularly in an area like this, what I'd like to put to the 2 candidates that are here, what is your plan, what is your intentions for your constituents in regards to ensuring that the post office remains public, remains Canadian-run, and also is a viable form, especially in rural areas. Like we up here, the main ones, we deliver the last kilometer. We also go to a lot of rural areas as well as Indigenous communities in the north. And I'd like to hear what the candidates have to say about that. Thank you.
First of all, I thought that we had child labor laws. You said 41 years. Would you start when you were 8? You start when you were 8 years old? But, no, you just look so young, sir. That's wrong. Okay. All right, so we'll start Adam this time.
First, thanks for your 41 years of service to Canada Post, one of the most important institutions in Canada. I really, really appreciate you. You also give me an opportunity to say that I'll always stand with Labour. I'll always be a voice for Labour. Our unions are some of the most important institutions, whether you work in the construction industry, in steel, aluminum, if you're a welder, a carpenter. Today, very proud of the fact that the Carpenters Union in Canada endorsed Mark Carney as the crane operators and engineers unions. And what I've been told is more unions and their support for Mark Carney are coming, and I'm grateful to see that. Our labor unions are so important, and unfortunately we've seen a lot of the same from them. Pierre Poilievre has been named by Lana Payne, who's the president of Unifor, as the least labor-friendly MP in the last 20 years. So he's voted for back to work legislation every single time it's come available. I want to say that that is absolutely the last resort, and I would never be in favor of it. The best deals always happen at the bargaining table, and I will always support Canada Post workers and everybody in the union in their right to collectively bargain. With respect to Canada Post, again, thank you for your service. Not only do people need their mail, but a lot of people receive their medication by mail. It's an essential service, and what you do every single day is absolutely essential for our economy. It needs to remain Canadian-run. It needs to remain public. It needs to remain sovereign in the sense that it's run by Canadians for Canadians. So you can count on me to always be a strong voice for labor. I'm proud of the fact that I've had many union reps, teachers, nurses, and recently Unifor come out and knock on doors for me because they've seen my work in the House of Commons, they've seen me stand up for labor, and I'll always be a voice for workers in my riding and across Canada. With my time remaining, I would just say that Canada Post did undergo a period of challenging negotiations over Christmas, and we saw the impact. Privatization would result in higher costs for sending gifts and cards and all sorts of things. It is a service, like public transit. It doesn't need a profit. It doesn't need to run a profit. In fact, it shouldn't in order to continue to be an important service. It's okay that things cost a little bit of money sometimes, but we want to make sure that Canada Post remains run by Canadians, and I'll always fight for your right to park collectively.
So I can talk personally to this. I was a postal worker for a while and saw what was actually happening in there, and you can probably testify the same thing. It's not good. Canada Post is run every year on a deficit. That means that you are funding a failing business model. Now there's all kinds of reasons for that, and we can then be nostalgic and say, oh yes, let's keep Canada Post going the way it was, from the glory days. Well, welcome to the land of electronic documentation. Most things are on the internet now. You get it by email, and you see that in your post office boxes, right? I mean, what are you getting? You're getting flyers, right? You're paying a lot of money for those flyers. So things change. Unfortunately, previous governments don't have the courage to do that change. It's time. It's time for that change, right? So as much as a lot of people don't want to hear that, I'm sure the post office people don't want to hear that, but that's a reality, right? We don't make lucky whips anymore because we have cars. And we don't need door-to-door delivery of flyers by people, right? When we can get them more efficiently someplace else. So my view is that we should probably phase this out over time and take that money and put it someplace else for the common good instead of squandering that money all over the place. Thank you.
Hello. I just want to ask related to healthcare. I've been in healthcare now for many, many years, and I just want to know what your perspectives are on, particularly family physicians and attracting or retaining physicians in areas where we need them, and how the government sees that going to be for the next many years. Because I think it's a real need for aging population, it's seen for young population, and a variety of areas. Healthcare is one, just general practitioners. So where do you see that going?
There's another question?
Yeah.
So your question is about the state of our healthcare and where it's going in the future, right?
Yes.
Okay, more or less. I didn't catch all of it, so I'll just kind of that. Anyway, so the Liberals will tell you that we've got the best healthcare system in the world. Have you been to the hospital lately? It's not. Okay. I've personally taken my mother there. She's having chest pains and she was in emergency for 8 hours. Didn't even look at her. Right? It's terrible. It's broken. But once again, we're tap dancing on an old business model that doesn't seem to work, and the Liberals keep splashing money at it instead of having the courage to actually change it and make it into something more efficient. Right? So obviously the public healthcare system might have been good at one point. it's no longer doing the job. There's queues. You have to wait for a month. Sometimes you don't even get treatment. I've got neighbors in my own neighborhood that are going to the States now because they can't get the treatment here in time because they'll be dead. That's not what we deserve. Now, there is private enterprises waiting on the sidelines, waiting to fill the gap. And I think that we should give them the opportunity to do that. And I think that's where we need to go in the future. Thank you.
So first off, I want to commit to making sure that you always pay for your health care with your health card and never your credit card. That's important to me. That's important to me. Gold standard program that the world is envious of, and we've got work to do to make sure that it continues to meet the expectations of Canadians. That includes pharmacare, that includes dental for people who can't afford dental. It includes all forms of care. And yeah, we need more doctors, more nurses. And one solution for that, my first cousin Rita McCracken in Vancouver is working on primary care clinics. And Debbie, thank you, Debbie, for your question. Thank you for your work in nursing as well, and for all the advocacy that you do across our country with various institutions like the Terry Fox Foundation. Very proud of your work. So Rita focuses on primary care models, which is kind of a new way of thinking about how to access a doctor, somewhere in between a walk-in clinic and a family doc, and making sure that people aren't having to go to the emergency room for things that they should be able to access a family doctor or clinic for. We've got nurse practitioners, we've got nurses, we've got lots of amazing healthcare workers that can help triage patients and help with a lot of issues. But also our pharmacists can do a little bit more. And we've seen some innovations recently with respect to pharmacy so that things can be prescribed right at the pharmacy for ailments that are appropriate for that type of thing. I want to say that I'm not a healthcare worker, so I don't have all the solutions. I was the Parliamentary Secretary for Health for 2 years during the pandemic, an extremely difficult time. And the response to that from our government was to create an incremental Canada Health Act investment of $200 billion over the next 10 years. And we want to make sure that the provinces and territories are investing those dollars. So for the first time, we put some strings attached on that money, and we're asking provinces to invest it in aging and long-term care, in addictions and mental health, in ensuring that the backlogs of procedures that COVID-19 produced are reduced, more family doctors and more nurses and better outcomes. The last one was data, recording more data. So look, Canada has a great system. I don't ascribe to the brokenest agenda and suggesting that it's all the worst, but we need to do better, we will.
Make it quick. I've been in this area for 20 years, and I remember when we took the horse and buggy to the government to show how backwards our internet infrastructure is here in the rural area. And thankfully the government listened, and they put up billions of dollars to a number of companies in order to bring the internet to the last mile, especially a very difficult geography we have with the trees and the rocks and hills. Unfortunately, I did benefit. Sloan did provide service. Then they took it away this January. They provided, a substandard replacement where now I have to pay for two different internet providers so that I can have enough data and then just get through the month with both my son and I work full-time at home. So what I want to ask the government is how can they enforce that companies don't just take the money and leave us and drive what they actually make sure that we have a permanent infrastructure, which would be standard broadband actually coming to the door and coming to even those places that are maybe a little more remote but doesn't be possible in the that they're going to do.
Yeah, especially with the bandwidth. I guess the bandwidth, we are still in with Toronto when they do it because we're part of the GT. I know that with the bandwidth, when the government gives that out, our area is with Toronto. It's because we're part of the GTA, whereas, Guelph there is a different section. So that is an issue for us, just bandwidth only. But I will ask Adam to go first on this one.
Thanks, John. And John, what you're referring to is the CRTC regional auctions for bandwidth, and those are an important step. And it's headed, right? Thank you for the question, Edmund. The truth is, we've come a long way in the last 6 years. When I got elected, there was about, Colin can help me here, but I think about 8,000 people in rural Milton who did not have service, did not have adequate. They're on satellite, like bad satellites. Some satellites better now, but they're on copper or phone line, and just oftentimes relying on their mobile service. About 4,500 customers, thanks to the Rural Broadband Fund, have been hooked up, but that means that there's still approximately 2,500 to 3,500. Colin's nodding, so I think my math is right. I'm never going to, challenge Colin on his local math. But so we're about halfway there. Projects are underway right now, as you know, and if we weren't in an election right now, Edmund, I would have already called Standard Broadband to ask what the heck. Because they were one of the recipients of one of the largest programs to ensure that we get adequate internet into our rural areas. It is a very challenging geographical space, I'll be honest. It's basically like a big water pipe. It's called backbone. So the internet doesn't just come from anywhere. I know Pierre Collier once said that the electricity just comes from the sky. That's not how the broadband works either. We need to have a source. There needs to be basically a big pipe that's carrying a lot of bandwidth. And that can either originate here or in Guelph. So there's a huge pocket of territory that doesn't have adequate service. We've connected a lot of people with this project, and I'm proud of that progress. It's required a lot of different proponents to come forward with various engineering solutions to the challenges that various things. We've got the escarpment, we've got trees. There was one MAID program that kind of blasted it from little satellites, telephone poles out onto people's properties, and there were all hard lines. But look, I've talked to you recently on the phone and many other people about this. This continues to be a persistent challenge, but we've had great progress with the Rural Broadband Fund, and I commit to, as soon as I'm re-elected, making sure that we close that gap and get the other 25 or 3,500 customers. And by the way, Colin West and Christine Tester-Dirksen have both been extraordinary advocates for Campbellville and for Ward 9.
So the internet is vital in our modern age of electronics, and if it's we have a weak pipe, that's a huge problem. Of course, Alan was saying, the rural countryside isn't the focus of the major players out there. And what you're talking about, sir, actually is poor service, which is usually the result of lack of choice. Canada is the land of controlled supply management and protected cartels, okay? So when you have two players in the market, any market, right? They're not really competing, they're protected by the state. That means they don't have to get better. So when you complain, they don't have to listen, and they're not. That whole idea is a failure. We've got history shows us that kind of communist ideology, always ends up in red lines, shortages, or no service at all. And once again, the answer here is to allow the great Canadian entrepreneurs out there to fill this gap. And they're doing it. Anybody who's got a cottage up north, they have great internet. Okay, why is that? Because they have entrepreneurs that are working those small little areas over there and providing the service. And they're right there. Relying on the government to do this for you. This goes down the rabbit hole so many different ways. Okay? You're not the solution. You're the problem. They're the problem, right? You people out there are the real solution. Those entrepreneurs out there that are willing to do this. So that's my take on that.
The government is the problem. Why are you running?
Okay, so just looking at the clock, that was kind of our last question, but if you do have more to talk to the candidates, we promised to get people out in time. We're going to have some time to give them all their final pitch, 2-3 minutes each. And just before they do that, I just have this little quick story that I remember hearing, that if you think you can't, change people's minds and questions, and after whoever wins this election, that's just the start. You keep on, and if you have a question, persistence, things like that. There was a story of, I remember Stéphane Dion, who was the leader of the delivers one time. Well, when he was a very young man, he was a separatist, and he was door knocking and that kind of thing. And one day he knocked on his farmer's door, and the farmer said, "Oh yeah, come on in, let's discuss this." The separatist, I guess. Well, a bottle of whiskey later, he had a bad hangover and was no longer a separatist. So obviously that farmer had an influence. So be sure to be, try to be influential. So anyway, so now we're just going to pass it on, and Adam, you're going to go first this time.
I'd like a question for Sherry.
Okay, really quick.
Bring it. I'll bring it.
No, she's got it.
Good evening. My name is Sherry Sabel, and I'm a Cree, and I live here in Milton. So I'm an Indigenous person here. And what I want to know is that, everybody else has concerns, but I, of course, have concerns for Indigenous people. And that's why I live here in Milton, and I make my home here. But I wanted to also know what kind of concrete steps you're going to take to support truth and reconciliation with Indigenous communities, and how are you going to ensure that Indigenous voices are front and center at those discussions?
Okay, all right.
Thank you so much, Sherry. You got a chance to ask a question. I'm happy that you're here tonight. I had the chance to knock on your door the other night. I had a great chat with Glenn. It's nice to see your husband at the door. And it's good to see you here tonight, too. And I would also like to acknowledge that we didn't do a proper land acknowledgement at the beginning of this gathering. We are gathered on the traditional territory of many First Nations, including the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, the Ottawa-Darren, and Mississauga, the Credit First Nation. And we have an obligation not just to acknowledge the territory that we live on, but this is a colonial nation. And all of us are immigrants, unless you are Sherry. And I'm sure there's another person or two here with Indigenous ancestry, but we all have a role to play in truth and reconciliation. Our government is proud of the fact that we are the first government to take truth and reconciliation sincere and work hard. We've vastly reduced the number of boil water advisories in Indigenous communities, but that job's not done yet. Unfortunately, the engineering challenges are persistent, and many communities have been back on that list. And in addition to that, a lot of communities that have clean water coming out of the tap refuse to lift their boil water advisory because they don't trust the water, and they shouldn't. They have that perspective, and they're totally entitled to it. Because of the decades and decades, and I would say centuries of neglect that Indigenous people have faced in this country. And just very briefly, I want to acknowledge that I made a name for myself here and abroad in Indigenous invention. I was a kayaker, and as a colonizer here, somebody that moved from Europe, I was very grateful for that invention and lots of other inventions that we take for granted here in Canada were created by First Nations and Métis. And we have a role to play as a colonial government to ensure that we're doing our best to maintain relationships, create relationships, and elevate voices. Today I filmed a video about the CBC, and one of the strong roles that the CBC plays is they elevate Indigenous voices, and they provide Indigenous-specific programming. You're never going to be able to count on billionaire-backed media or for-profit media to tell those stories. So Sherry, to you, to all Indigenous leaders and people here in Milton and across Turtle Island, I commit to always being a listener, using my 2 ears twice as often as I use my mouth. I'm good friends with Chief Littlechild, and he's been an extraordinary grandfather for me over the last couple of years. He's been an excellent auntie. So thank you for your work, and I hope I can continue with it.
So once again, the Indigenous problem that you're facing out there, another glaring example how the federal government has failed. They've been in charge of the Indigenous people of this country through the Indians Act, and nothing's really changed. Right? It's this welfare system that keeps these people entrapped. This has got to end. It's got to end. It's got to end. Okay, so the government once again is not helping here. They're just maintaining a broken status quo. It's time for a rethink. The Liberals don't have the courage to look at this, and they won't. They'll just keep throwing more money at it. Nothing will change, and you'll see.
What's your
You're hear the same things over and over again. I believe that you have the power to do better than what the government can offer you.
What would you do if I voted for
I would repeal the Indians Act and set you free. That's what I would do. That's what I would do. That's my take on that. Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to do the final 3 minutes. Adam, final pitch.
I tried to speak up, and I would like to just offer my colleague the opportunity to retract his opening where he called it the Indigenous problem. I note that he did not retract that disgusting comment. So, this has been a sincere honor and privilege for the last 5.5 years, and I hope I can continue doing this work. We've got a lot of work to do. CBC didn't come up tonight, and I know that it's something that a lot of people care about. And I want to talk about public broadcasting just a little bit and the importance of it. Nobody's going to tell our stories unless we do. You can't count on billionaire-backed media or Fox News or what will fill the void if CBC is defunded and scrapped, as Peter Poilievre has committed to. CBC is just one of the strong institutions in Canada that's necessary to continue to ensure that Canada is strong, safe, and sovereign. That we have a distinct identity from the United States and every other country in this world, and to ensure that all of the nations within our nation, including Quebec and all of the Indigenous communities across our country, continue to have strong voices. We continue to ensure that languages are within our broadcasting, regardless of whether that's a Hockey Night in Canada broadcast in Cree or Punjabi. It allows Canadians to connect to who we are as Canadians. I look back at how many times CBC has played a strong role in my life, whether it was just the weather service to figure out how many layers I needed to go put on before I went kayaking, or the opportunity to go to the Olympics and have those stories told and have them broadcast free of charge to Canadians, regardless of how much money you make. I love the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation so much. I got to work at the mothership a couple of times, and yesterday I was serving Seva at the Oakville Brewer for Waisaki. The gentleman that I was serving next to said, "What do you do?" And he said, "Oh, I work at the CBC." I said, "No way, that is awesome." He knew my cousin Jane, who also works there, and talked about his extraordinary work and being able to tell Canadian stories. But this election is about Canada. It's about Canada more than previous elections. It's about who we are as a nation and what we need to do in order to ensure that we have a distinct identity from our neighbors down south. Because when somebody suggests they want to take what's ours, I take that threat very, very seriously. Other parties have suggested that the Liberals are trying to make this election about Trump. But I've knocked on 4,000 doors in the last 25 days. Canadians are deciding what this election is about, not the Liberal Party of Canada. Canadians are setting the tone and setting the agenda, and that's our theme. Canadians have decided that our election, upcoming on April 28th, is about protecting what's ours and making sure that we foster and create a world that doesn't think that if something looks nice, that they can just reach out and grab it. That's the type of president we have in the United States. I reject the notion that the government ought to be smaller and to just get out of the way of every aspect of our lives, because anytime a person who is seeking elected office suggests that they want small government, they're also suggesting they be part of that small government and that they have more power and institutions have less. We're seeing that happen down in the United States. I want to spread democratic power, influence, and across many institutions in Canada. That includes Inuit Tapiri Kanatami and the Assembly of First Nations and the Métis Councils. That includes the province of Quebec as a distinct nation. I love Canada so much, and thank you so much for allowing me to speak about it and for giving me the privilege of representing you in Ottawa for another 4 years.
A good friend of mine told me a long time ago that politics is called contrast, and I think that's where you learn here today. You've got more of the same and new ideas for the future, right? So let's not forget what's happened in the last 10 years. They want you to forget what's happened. Okay, yeah, it's not good. Okay, they can gloss it over all they want, but people don't trust the government anymore, and for good reason, right? They've lied. They've stolen things. They haven't talked about the things that we want to talk about. That's the worst part. And on top of that, they've allowed our country to be infiltrated by foreigners, and now They're affecting our democracy. On their watch. Yes, you're right. Yes. I'm not a racist. No, the RCMP put it into a report. Saying that there was foreign influence in this country, and the Liberals just didn't say anything and allowed them to keep on going. Now we've got foreign agents that you've elected into Parliament trying to get re-elected. I know it's funny. It's not funny. It's not funny, right? You should be all alarmed, right? You don't know who you're voting for now. Is it China? Right? Is it? Right? These are social problems that you need to think about. Anyway, so here's the
Please let it. He has his time. Please just let him finish. Please.
Okay. Thank you. So the choice is glaring here. You can have more of the bad things that have happened in the last 10 years, or we can have a refresh here and start from scratch, right? I believe in the Canadian people. I know.
Please just let him. He has 3 minutes. He's a candidate. You have to respect him.
Moderate.
Please. Everybody gets their time equal. So, okay, continue.
Anyway,
1 minute left.
what I'm trying to say is that I have more hope and faith in the Canadian people than I do in more big government, especially a government that is incompetent and can't do the job like we can. So vote wisely. That's all I was. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for being a tremendous audience. I want to thank all the candidates. Adam, Dean, who I believe, of course, and Charles for being here. Other candidates were invited, but were unable to attend. Take that for what it is. I'm not going to say anything. We do appreciate, you all have differing opinions. That's pretty obvious. But I did sense that all of you care about Canada. You're passionate about what you believe, and you all want to make Canada as best that it can be. And how we get there, maybe we disagree, and that's why we're in Canada. We can do that. We can disagree. So thank you all for coming. Remember, advance polls start this weekend. So if you're perhaps having an Easter dinner and had enough of your family, just go for a tour and go for a vote. Another one of that. And also, and be sure if you don't get to the advance polls, go on the 28th. It's, vote early, vote often, is that what they always say? But probably not often. But so the candidates will be around, so if you need to talk to them, by all means. They have literature over there, and they can talk to you from their team. So thank you for coming. Everyone travel safe. Hopefully it didn't snow. And yes, Jennifer.
Just one more quick thing. The video recording will be on www.campbellville.net if you want. I'll also be emailing it out to our newsletter if you're not part of that. If you're not, you can go on campbellville.net and sign up to be part of our newsletter. I just want to thank the Halton Region Federation of Agriculture for co-hosting with the GCCA tonight. Much appreciated. And a huge round of applause for our all-star moderator, John Oxley.
And thanks to our hosts here at Come back to the fair weekend is in June the 14th, 15th? Yeah, 14th, 15th, come back, awesome time. Be here or be square. There you go. So, all right, enjoy. Very nice.